Who's next, Moni? What question do we have next?
We have Rengrad, who has a 40k question for us. So I'm pulling him in now.
All right. Oof. 40k questions always scare me because I don't know much yet about that universe. I know more than I did a month ago, but you know, I'm still fucking learning. Rengrad, how you doing, bro?
It's going good, man. How are you doing today?
Voice still a bit fucked, otherwise good, man. Thanks for asking.
Hope it gets better for sure. But I don't know. Sultry voices actually, you know, they can turn people on a little more. You know, maybe that's actually a benefit. You know.
Mm-hmm. Fuck you, bro. I'm not ASMRing you.
Hey, man. Why not?
That's the Twitch streams,
There's a whole directory for it.
No. We do VTubing and ASMR on Twitch. Here on YouTube, we do just normal streams. No funny business here.
Well, all right. That's fair. No, but I'm not gonna ask you anything you don't know because I know you're new. So no worries at all. I'm pretty much new myself, and I only probably got like 1,000 hours in the universe. So
only 1,000 hours.
Only 1,000 hours. That means nothing.
Yeah, I know.
I guess my thing is, I got one question, and then if you want, there's another one, but they're both pretty quick. But yeah. So you've learned. I know you've learned about the whole 1,000 people getting sacrificed to the Emperor per day.
Yeah, apparently it's like closer now to like 15,000 a day almost at this point. But yeah, I've heard about that.
Yeah. So basically, when people say, I just want to put an emphasis on this. When people say like sacrifice 1,000 people a day for like the living battery, the whole idea of the Emperor, most people fail to say that most of those aren't just people; they're children for the most part.
Yeah, so, psychers, right? It's
yeah, exactly. And most of the time, like older psychers, they're a lot harder to capture because they're a lot more volatile. So like the children are like what's caught early, and then they're taken away. So the thing is mostly children are killed for that. So a lot of people fail to like realize this, you know. So it's kind of like an extra cherry on the fucked up cake, you know what I mean?
Yeah. Well, I would expect nothing less. If you told me it's only criminals and bad people, I would be like, what? Are you for real?
Yeah.
But, you know...
Innocence and justice means nothing.
Yeah, if you told me it's virgins, priests, and all the good people in the world, I'd be like, that makes sense. That's a Warhammer story, let's go. Children, even better, right? It just makes sense.
Exactly. So delicious. But also the fact that they don't die instantly. A lot of people have those two misconceptions.
How do they die?
They're just sacrificed. So they're put into these... There's... So the throne isn't like a room you walk into and there's just an emperor sitting on it. Basically, from the description that we have, is it's actually underneath the building. So it's like in a basement. And there's a lot of these like cables and all this like tech shit hooked up there, and he's underneath. And it's not easy to get to there because, you know, I mean, if it was, he probably would have been murdered a long time ago by quite a few people, actually, you know.
Yeah.
One of them being Trazyn. Hey, the Necron.
Yeah.
But the other, you know, being actually one of the other Primarchs. I'm not going to spoil too much, but there's a fun story about that. But yeah, so it's like a basement room, and he's chilling in there. And there's stasis pods in a different location of the palace. And that's where the pods are, and you bring these, you know, people in, you throw them into these pods, and basically their psychic power is slowly drained over roughly 24 hours.
Yeah.
And basically by the time it's done, they just turn to ash because there's just no juice left in there, you know.
But basically what you're describing there is very similar to what's the guy? If you remember the throne that was supposed to be Magnus's, right? Magnus was supposed to be the one that manned the Webway. And then because Magnus fell, the Emperor asked one of his loyal... Malcador. That's the one. Because that's exactly what happened to Malcador, right?
Exactly. He could have kept that's the thing, is he's the only one that could have kept it open that long. Being just a regular human being. Like, if it was Magnus, he probably could have done it way longer. Maybe even permanently. Just because he's got that, like, fortitude,
But then they're not actually... Those things aren't actually feeding the Emperor. The Psykers are keeping the Webway open. If it happens over 24 hours and they sacrifice 15,000 souls per 24 hours, it means that they're not. So the Emperor keeps the waveways open. This is one of two ways, right? One, the Emperor is the one that keeps the waveways open, but because the Emperor is dead, right, his psychic power can't replenish, so they have to use other psychics to feed him psychic power so that he can keep the waveways open. The other way around is that they just use the Emperor's body as a conduit and feed the psychic power straight into the waveway to keep the waveway open. Because
there's a couple theories with that, actually. Yeah, for sure.
But I mean, what happened to Malkador happens to all of the Psychers, which...
Yeah. So basically, there's a couple theories that go about it. Some say that it goes directly to the Emperor and he distributes the energy himself. And the others say that it powers like the or keeps the portal closed by itself. I don't really know in what which is the more plausible. But there's actually a third theory that I actually heard recently, and it actually hits way better than all those actually.
Okay.
It's the fact that the Golden Throne, if you think about it, it wasn't meant for the Emperor to sit on, right?
No. Yeah.
No.
It was...
So. Yeah, it was supposed to be for Magnus.
Yes.
And then Magnus kind of, shit the bed a little bit.
Yep.
Which, I mean, was the Emperor's fault, let's be honest. Like, Magnus did nothing wrong.
There's a lot of things that was the Emperor's fault.
I agree. But, the theory is that all those stasis pods and everything was already there prior to the Emperor getting fucked, right? So the thought was that Magnus was going to sit there, and the Emperor was going to place him there permanently, basically sacrifice his own son for him to permanently sit there forever, lost in the void, and he would keep the portal, the beacon open so that people can see where they're going, and the Emperor could do his own thing, right? And so those pods would have been an assistance to him because even he couldn't power it to its fullest extent permanently. And so, but what the theory is keeping that in mind is that those people, that throne wasn't the Emperor sitting on it.
Yeah,
he could power it even in his fucked up state by himself, right? For the most part, what the theory is that all those people getting sacrificed to him and the worship of him by orcs and other humans.
Yeah.
Well, not worship by the orcs, but
they're doing it to create him in the warp.
Well, yeah, and the thing is what they're saying is he's not been using that energy from Psychers. He's been absorbing it this whole time. That's why his presence, even though he's unquote dead, he's actually way stronger, and his presence in the warp is growing. So what the theory is that all those Psychers that are dying every day are actually becoming a part of the Emperor, and he's basically absorbing all their power. So now that's why he's becoming god level power. Yeah, because he has thousands upon hundreds of thousands upon millions of Psychers inside of him now.
Yeah. So I'm working on my first Warhammer theory, right? And I've been consuming a lot of just sort of information. I just recently bought Horus Rising. I've been reading that. I'm currently looking for War in Heaven or books about the War in Heaven. So that it's very fucking difficult to get those books here because I've got a Kindle. I literally bought a Kindle so that I could get these books because I can't get the books in South Africa. And then it turns out that the Kindle version of all of the Warhammer books is only available in the US, or at least it's not available in South Africa. So I'm stuck having to fucking get these books on Audible, which I fucking loathe, but never mind.
Well, would it be cheaper just to send the Kindle over to maybe a subscriber or something in the US? He just downloads all of them on there and then sends it back.
I could probably do that, or I've not run out of options yet. One of the options is to just get a VPN and see if that would work. Although I don't want to fuck too much with my Amazon account because that's the Twitch account too. So the last thing I need there is fucking with it to the point where they go, wait a second, ban this shit.
Suspicious.
Yeah. So I'm sort of careful with whatever I'm doing there. But that being said, though, I am in the process of reading those. But my theory currently sort of backtracks what the Emperor have been doing, and by the end of it, I won't spoil the video because I'm literally in the process of recording it now. But basically, the end goal of the theory, the Emperor always needed to awaken within the warp. Always. That was why he was created. That is the purpose for his creation. That is why everything played out the way that it played out. Because for the Emperor to do what he was put on this earth to do, he needs to be in the warp. If you think about it, the Emperor's literal, like the reason he stood up was to defeat chaos and to stop chaos and to sort of, so just the simple thing, he wanted to find access to the webways for humanity so that they could starve out the warp, right? He wanted to see if they could starve chaos as much as possible and not feed into it at all. That is the Emperor's very existence, is to stop chaos. The problem is if you're in the material realm, you can't really kill something that's in the immaterial. You have to become immaterial in order to kill the things in the immaterial. And that is what the Emperor is doing now. So that would actually make perfect sense. All of these souls that is currently being sacrificed, they believe that they're sacrificing these souls in order to feed the Emperor so that he doesn't die, but they're not actually feeding him so that he doesn't die. They are creating him, recreating him within the warp. Because think about it. God how was Slaanesh created? Slaanesh was created by the Eldar and their depraved acts, right? The raping and the slaughter and the torture of beings is what ultimately created the Chaos God Slaanesh. Now, all of these thousands upon thousands of souls being sacrificed is the exact same thing, right? It is depraved as fuck what they're doing. So clearly they're creating something, and I think they are creating the Emperor, and he wants to awaken in the warp so that he can kill all of the Chaos Gods. That's the sort of gist of the theory, but I do have a lot of evidence, at least from what I could find. I'm sure there's evidence in the world that sort of disproves that theory, but that's the theory that I'm working on right now. And I think there's enough evidence in the story of Warhammer to support that theory.
Well, here's my question then. So as soon as he dies to awaken in the warp, humanity on the outside is kind of boned.
Not necessarily. Why would you think them boned?
Well, because everything shuts down immediately. The whole the Astronomicon instantly goes black, so no more travel at all. The only space travel you would have is your local from like planet to planet, which is really short. You wouldn't even be able to leave your system, so no more, especially planets that require, so like Terra, for instance, hasn't been producing jack shit for like, tens of thousands of years, because it's literally the whole planet is just a palace, essentially, for the Emperor, right? They've like put all the continents together, and that's what it is. So,
But the Emperor right now is holding the demons at bay from the Materium, right? He's keeping the warp at bay from the Materium. He is keeping the webways closed from the Materium. If he awakens,
it's not the webways.
If he awakens in the Immaterium, he can keep them closed from inside. He can now direct humanity through the warp from within the Immaterium. So I don't think it's obvious that everything's just fucked immediately, because the Emperor is still the Emperor. The only difference is he's no longer trapped in the Materium. He's now in the Immaterium. So he's inside the warp. He's now the ultimate inside man. The bigger question,
you have to have the physical conduit on the throne that actually powers the the Astronomicon. Like so it's actually linked to his throne. That's where some of the power goes. It goes into two places. It goes into that portal to keep the webway closed, and it also goes partially to the Astronomicon, and that's what the navigators see when they go into the warp. They see that light from Terra, and they're like, okay, so that's where the light is. I need to go this way to get here. So as soon as he dies physically, it goes pitch black.
Not necessarily.
Oh?
Because you're assuming that he dies. His soul...
Well, he would physically.
No, but his soul could already be in the warp. So think of it as the throne is the connection. It allows him to exist in both places at once. So his body remains on the golden throne, powering it as it did.
I see what you're saying.
But his soul now awakens within the Immaterium, where he can wage his ultimate war on the forces of chaos. And of course use the ultimate army, which is the humans, to do it. So I would argue that's probably the end goal for him. I don't think he's gonna reclaim his body in any way, shape, or form. I don't think he has need for it. Which is probably why the Golden Throne was built the way that it is. It's why it connects both of those realms, because it gives him access to both of those realms. Right?
You know, I get what you're saying. I just don't know if that's the case, because like people can access the warp without the throne. It depends if you're a psyker, you just automatically get access to it. You know, the throne was more for the plans the Emperor had. You know.
Yeah, but that's the thing. Because the plans the Emperor had, everyone thinks that those plans stopped because of Horus. Right? Everyone believes that Horus's betrayal, the great betrayal, is what stopped those plans. I say, what if all of that was meant to happen? So what if the Horus heresy wasn't a betrayal? The Emperor needed his Primarchs to turn against him. He needed to be killed, or almost killed. All of it was part of the plan. The reason I say all of it was part of the plan, if it isn't, the Emperor is stupid as fuck, and I realize it's blasphemy and heresy what I'm saying now. But if you view all of that as an accident, the Emperor made some incredibly bad judgment calls. Like, incredibly bad. The Emperor made a lot of decisions that makes no fucking sense. However, if you look at all of it as it was supposed to happen, then suddenly the Emperor is playing 8D fucking chess.
Yeah, it's the thing. It's kind of where you lean to. If you think he's like a 5-head, or if you think he's like a 2-head kind of thing. So if you think he's like super genius, or if he's just a fuck up.
Yeah,
like it depends where you lean with him for sure.
Exactly. For sure. If you hate the Emperor, you're gonna think, nah, he's a fucking moron, bro. He just messed up, you know, Giga Chad. If you like the Emperor, as I do, then you think, no, this guy knew what the fuck was up. He understood what was up.
Yeah, that's for sure. I just I think the only thing why I lean on him actually making mistakes is he once he met Vulcan for the first time. His salamander Primarch, that big guy that's like pitch black with red eyes, that beefy boy. He met him on his planet, and I think he was talking to one of his other Primarchs. I forget who exactly it was.
Yeah.
But the guy goes like, "What do you see in this guy? Like, why?" And he's talking about Vulcan. He's like, "What do you see in him? You kind of seem like you like the guy." And he's like, "Well, you know, like he's kind of an interesting person all to himself and blah blah." But he goes into this whole aspect of future sight, and he's like, "Watch this. He's gonna jump for that like rock, and he's gonna miss it, and but he's still gonna catch himself when he was climbing this like cliff." Yeah. And that's what happens. And the Primarch watches and he's like, "How did you know that?" And he's like, and he goes into this spiel about, well, I can see the future paths, but there's so many of them that you can't ever guess correctly. You can just make the best assumption and go with it, because things change. Even if you see the future could still change. Yeah. So basically, that's what I think happened, is he made the best decision with what he had. And some things happened that he didn't expect, but it's kind of like it still turned out for the quotes better.
Yeah, but
that's just me.
That's the thing. If you can see every possible path, your only real option from there is to guide things along the path that you planned for. And because you're dealing with chaos, the problem with chaos, from my reading, is that chaos is inevitable. It doesn't matter what you do. It doesn't matter how you try to stop it. Chaos is chaos. Every thought, every emotion. This is sort of something that I see a lot of even Warhammer fans get wrong. And that is that people seem to think that the reason the Emperor was against religion, for example, was because of chaos. I have seen, of everything that I've read, I've seen zero evidence that shows that the Chaos Gods get off on being worshipped. Doesn't seem like it bothers them. Whether you believe in them or not believe in them, they couldn't give two fucks. That's not what feeds them. Khorne is fed by war, so anyone that you kill in just killing, that feeds Khorne, right? Blood for the Blood God, skulls for the Skull Throne. That's the whole thing with Khorne. Slaanesh gets off on every single depraved act that human beings inflict upon one another. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter whether you fucking worship Slaanesh or doesn't worship Slaanesh. Your depraved thoughts go into the warp and it ends up feeding Slaanesh. Zeech, same thing. Nurgle, same thing, right? He gets off on sickness. Every emotion that you have, every thought that you have, every action that you take that impacts another human being or mortal to have a certain thought, all of that will feed into the Chaos Realms. So whether you have religion or don't have religion doesn't seem to make much of a difference to the Chaos Gods. So the Emperor's war on religion must have had another... there must have been another reason for why he didn't want religion in any way, shape, or form. And I think there is a way to explain that. Not entirely sure, but I think I have a way of explaining that. At the end of the day, when you know that chaos is inevitable, when you know that everything you do will ultimately end up feeding chaos, you need to plan for chaos ultimately winning, right? Because that is the most likely outcome. The most likely outcome is that your Primarchs will be corrupted and will fall to chaos. There's nothing you can do about it. Whether you tell them about chaos or don't tell them about chaos, they will fall to chaos because chaos is inevitable. You will ultimately die at the hands of chaos because, again, chaos is inevitable. So that's sort of my thinking around it is the Emperor was well aware of the fact that he could not stop chaos. Not from the Materium. He needed to find another way. But, you know, I'm still doing the research. I'm still writing the theory. I'll present the theory to all of you guys, and then you can tell me. You know, after the video, you can write there, Accolonn, you stupid fuck, you missed this, this, and this, right? And we'll go back to the drawing board. But I do have a pretty, I think, interesting theory about what I think the Emperor was doing and what he was up to. At least, yeah, that's what I think.